Okay, for this tutorial we're going to go over image trace a little bit. So first thing I want to show you about image trace is, not that, sorry, is you can find a line drawing of any kind, whether it's one that you've made. I'm just going to pull one from the internet here to show you a couple things. So we'll use this one and copy image, and we'll just plop it right into our page. So the cool thing about image trace is it will turn a pixelated scanned in image into a beautiful smooth vector, assuming that you give it enough information to go off of. So if we zoom in, obviously we can tell this is a very pixelated image. But let's say we want it to be really smooth lines. So what you can do is go to Window, Image Trace, and I already have mine open, but if yours is not open, it's just under Window, Image Trace. Here's Image Trace, and there's a whole bunch of presets here. You can see there's View, Mode, all this stuff, so we're going to get into that in a moment. For now, we just want it on black and white, and to see what it's going to look like, we're going to go ahead and hit Preview. And nothing happened. And that's because this threshold is basically like our sensitivity bar. So let's kind of up our sensitivity a little bit more, and we can start to get a better idea. And then underneath the threshold, there's Advanced. If you do that drop-down menu, you can adjust the paths, how they're going to look. You can sort of fine-tune this a little bit. So once you have it how you want it, it's just automatically doing it, so you don't need to hit trace or anything, it just did it, so you can click off of it. And now we have a vector. However, you can see that we can't select any of the individual paths or anything, and that's because it's kind of all condensed still. So in order to see all that stuff, you're going to have to go to Object and Expand. So if you hit Expand, hit OK, now we can start to see all of those anchor points and paths. And sometimes the computer can do some funky stuff here and not, you know, it can't read your mind with what you want to have done here. So let's say you wanted to fill that lip and change the color to pink. Because we traced it in black and white, I think is the issue. It's defaulting to grayscale. So we'll go to Window, Color, and to get that color back under our color palette, we're going to go to this drop-down menu and select CMYK. And there we have that color. So it's kind of nice because you can start to, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and just eyedrop copy the other one. There we go. You can start to almost use it like a coloring book, but let's say that we did want, you know, these hands to have some color in them. This is where we could use our pen tool and draw in some cool stuff. So right over here we have our layer 1. Let's just go ahead and make a new layer to keep things simple. And I'm going to put my new layer underneath this layer. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you take your pen tool and you click and you start to see when to draw around here, these other paths that are on the hand can start to interrupt what you're trying to do with your pen tool and like sort of add to it if you didn't want that. So one way to prevent that is just go to this layer and lock it. And that way, that's telling Illustrator, I don't want to mess with this stuff, leave it alone, I'm going on a new layer here. So just for example, we can start to play around with, you know, drawing in some sort of shapes. I'm just going to mess around here. Obviously this is not a, not a good hand. Alright, so if you're wondering why can't we see what she's drawing, it's because my top layer here, I'm going to unlock it. When it traced this background as its own shape. This is all a shape right here, that white, see that? So I would just have to delete that. And actually, that looks kind of not as, looks kind of artsy. I don't know if it looks as bad as I thought it would. Anyway. So you just saw that white kind of showed up there. I do want to show you how you can skip that step because this one was really easy to do, but some of them get really complicated. So I'm going to go ahead and just do Command V and paste that in there again. And I want you to notice that if I were to image trace this again, turn it into a vector, there is an option right there under options that says ignore white. And what that would do is it sets all the whites to just be having none on the fill. So I'm going to click that, hit preview. Got to adjust my threshold again, all that good stuff. And now when I do trace it, and if I were to click and drag this over here, you can see it's only the black. It doesn't have any white to it. So that's one fun little trick for you. Okay, so that's the most kind of basic use of this, and I've used it a lot of times with my own drawings. If I want to turn them into a nice smooth vector, I'll use image trace. But what I want to show you next is how to start to achieve some sort of cool graphic effect like this using one of your own photographs. So what I'm going to do is here, I'll go back to my original one and just show you how I achieved this look. And show you the other possibilities of image trace, because you don't have to do black and white. I just like the look of that. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag this picture of Lachlan in here. Hey, I'm doing a tutorial video. Nope, you're fine. So I'm going to click and drag a picture of Lachlan in here. And I wanted to show you some of the other options in case you didn't see this. You can go to black and white is what we were just doing, so let's hit preview. And I apologize, this image might take a moment. Okay, there we go. So I turned it black and white, and that's how I made this image. But you can see that I have all these color backsplashes going on behind Lachlan. And the way that I was able to do that was by clicking Ignore White on my option here. And then that allows me again to just have this nice transparent black vector with no whites in it. So I can drop in any color design pattern that I want to do. Okay? But that's just one thing you could do. Another thing you could do is if you don't really care for the black and white image, you could click color. And again, I apologize, this might take a moment because my image is not huge, but it's big enough to kind of bog down my computer. All right, so if you think that's kind of fun, you could totally do something with color. You could adjust, they have how many colors you want. You can play around with the paths and all that again. There's presets you can mess around with, but I'll just let you kind of tinker around with all those because if I click through them, it's going to bog down my computer and take forever. So again, if you want to start tinkering around with this, we're going to have to do Object and Expand. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to play around with all those individual areas. So you can Object, Expand, hit OK, and that is a very complex image with a lot of paths. So now I can start do my direct selection tool, and I can start to tinker around with moving stuff away, having my image sort of like fragmented and falling apart. Playing around with grabbing individual paths for sure, deleting sections. Kind of messing with the fill of each individual area. So yeah, it can get pretty fun pretty quickly. So I'm going to hop back to this other document really quickly, and we're going to. I wanted to show you these layers and stuff that I had going on. So I'm going to hide these. This was my base layer, and I have it locked right now. So I'm going to unlock it, move it. And I'm using layers to sort of build up color behind here. So I drew in this using my pen tool. I just drew this in. And then I drew in these sunglasses with my pen tool. And the nice thing is you can draw on top. This is what I did. I used my pen tool and drew on top, and then you can just drag it underneath that layer and kind of see what it looks like. So if the pen tool, can be pretty fun to use here. You can drop in just like, splashes of color and have some fun making it pretty abstract. and wild. Okay, so hopefully that gives you enough to go off of. You can totally, for this project that we're going to do, you can appropriate things from the internet. So let's say that you wanted to, you want to do some stars, but you didn't want a pen tool, make all of them yourself. You could just look up star vectors or star clip art type of thing. And we're going to turn all of this stuff into vectors. So I could take these stars, go back to Illustrator, paste them in, and then apply image trace, object, expand, hit OK, grab my direct selection tool. Oh, I forgot to do ignore white. See, classic mistake. Okay, and now we can start to play around with all of these and add these to our image. I have them all together right now, but I could use my direct selection tool and take all these stars independently from one another. So select just that guy and move them. I guess while we're on the subject, right now all of these are, if I use my selection tool, they're grouped, including that one, see that one little nugget that I moved off to the side? They're all grouped. If you want to ungroup them, just go to Object, Ungroup, and then now you should be able to just select each, ooh, lies, Mrs. Hall, Ungroup, Ungroup, apparently, okay, there we go, now let's try. Apparently they had more than one group going on, because there's shapes within shapes here. You'll get the idea. So now I can kind of click and drag and select these out differently. Start making a composition. Right now this composition is kind of a mess, but you can do better. Anyway, hopefully that was helpful, and good luck.